Welcome to Grow Good, a podcast of conversion stories, to share encounters with a living God, to bear good fruit, a place where others can meet or be inspired to meet God. So get cozy, lean in, and listen close. Miracles are at work, and He wants to meet you too. My name is Rachel Smith, and I'm your host. Now let's start growing some good. Hello, friends, and happy Tuesday. I am so excited this week to bring you the story of Caitlyn Jude. Before we get into this week's conversion story, I wanted to give the Listener Leaf shout out of the week. This week, I wanted to highlight a new Branches of the Vine supporter of the show, Jennifer. Jennifer left a note with her contribution saying, "Dear Rachel, here's to building on the dreams. I look forward to hearing and learning more from your work. Warmly, Jennifer." Jennifer, thank you so much for supporting the show, for supporting everything that we're doing over here, and for listening along to the podcast, including all of the monthly bonus episodes that you now have access to. You are amazing. If you believe in the power of conversion stories and want to help to support what it is that you're listening to right now and help us to expand into even more channels and reach even more souls, you can visit donorbox.org/2-grow-good and sign up to become a Branches of the Vine supporter. It is also a live link in today's episode description. So if it's easier, you can just scroll right on down and click it. If you become a monthly supporter for as little as $1 a month, you will gain access to a new bonus episode every month on a different topic that is currently stirring my heart. So far, I've poured my heart out on prayer, how I learned it was simply a conversation with our Creator, what it looks like for me, and on Our Lady, how I met her and how her and her fiat have changed everything for me. My identity as a woman, my relationship to God, my relationship to the church. For June, the bonus episode is going to be all about adoration, Eucharistic adoration, what it even is, how I discovered it, why it matters. I'm going to open up about some of my own incredible experiences that I've had in adoration with our Lord and what a gift it is for each one of us. It's such a joy to get to share more of my heart with those who are supporting this mission and making it happen. So thank you. With all that being said, let's get into this week's conversion story. Caitlyn is a new time YouTuber, and she has a YouTube channel called Caitlyn Jude. If you want to go check out some of her videos, they are now up. She speaks on all different variety of topics that have to do with the Catholic faith and what it's like to live it out. Caitlyn is just incredibly intelligent. Her story is so cool because it's so unique and so intellectually driven. She looked into so many different ideologies and not only just looked into, she deeply looked into a number of different faiths and actually really honestly tried them out. And it's so fascinating just to get inside her mind a little bit and to pick her brain on how she came to know this truth after looking into so many other options, and why she decided that she came to know that this really was the truth that she had been searching for. And then those little things along her journey, the way that Our Lady was so clearly praying for her all along, the role that the saints played as intercessors for Caitlyn. And I just love to see God's hand in it all and how He delights in using what we find interesting to delight us into coming to know Him at a deeper level. And that's just so clearly what I see in Caitlyn's story. It's like he was he delighted in her fascination with the world and with so many intellectual questions and deep theological arguments. And that sent her on this wild adventure where now she knows so much about this faith, and she knows that this is the true church, that God himself came and left for us, and just how beautiful it is. So here is the story of Caitlyn Jude. But first, a message from today's episode sponsor, Catholic Match. Are you feeling called to marriage but struggling to meet others who are striving for sainthood? Well, my friends, there is a solution for you. Welcome to Catholic Match, the largest faith-focused dating app designed for single Catholics. Unlike other dating sites, Catholic Match primarily strives to help singles connect for the purpose of sacramental marriage through direct message, video chat, and more. And not only that, it also provides a place to make new friends in the faith because, let's be honest, these days it's harder than ever to cultivate intimate Catholic community. Create your Catholic love story. Visit catholicmatch.com/2growgood to create your free Catholic Match account and start meeting fellow-minded Catholics today. Caitlyn, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Yeah, thank you for having me on. Yeah.
I'm so excited that you are here and that you're going to share your story with us. But before we get started, do you mind just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what it is that you do now?
Yeah, so my name is Caitlyn. I am a Catholic convert. I came into the church in 2016. And so this year will be my 5th year as a Catholic, which is crazy. And I also have started a YouTube channel as well. And so, yeah, I'm kind of been working on that like very recently. It was something I've started over the summer, last summer. And so, yeah. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. Yes. And I found Caitlyn through Instagram and eventually then YouTube. I checked out her new channel and I was just so inspired. I'm so inspired by people that are, out there sharing their faith and trying to spread the gospel like the Lord asks us to. And it's just beautiful to watch how through each of our gifts, he's using each of us in such a unique way to reach specific people that we're meant to reach. So it's just beautiful and so grateful for you. But yeah, let's go back. If you could just maybe give a little bit of your background in the faith, how you grew up, and what your journey has been like. And then if you could remember a moment or an encounter where you really felt like you came to know that God was there.
Yeah. And so, so basically I grew up non-religious, Protestant, but non-religious really. So I was baptized as a baby in the Methodist church. So yeah, but my parents, they didn't really practice or anything like that. So, I just kind of grew up with a pretty secular background. Yeah. And so, and I went to preschool at a Baptist church. So I got a little bit of Christianity, knowledge, back at that time. But, it was only for 1 year and I was so young too. So it was I got a little bit, but I didn't really know that much about what Christianity was or what it meant or anything like that until I was 14. So this was the summer of 2012. And so at that time, I started getting interested in the idea of researching into Christianity. And the way I started was actually I stumbled across one of Lizzie Rize's videos. Yeah, I know you guys did a podcast with her
Yeah, she's
before.
awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm actually friends with her now in real life.
No way. Oh my gosh. Wow, it's small world.
yeah. So, yeah. And so I watched one of her videos and then I kind of stumbled across her channel and watched a bunch of the videos she made back when she was Protestant about Christianity. And that made me kind of start wanting to learn more about Christianity. And so, yeah. And then at that time, I was kind of like agnostic about God. So I was like, kind of like, I would always go back and forth, like, do I believe God exists or not? So I was a little unsure, but I think I was getting to that point a little bit where I was like, oh, I think God does exist. And I think I eventually rationalized it using kind of like the Pascal's wager. If I rationalized it, like, better to believe that there is a God that and be wrong than, to not. So yeah, and so I started getting really interested in researching Christianity and kind of finding out what it was. Because thinking about it, like, I really did not know anything about it, pretty much like barely anything. I just kind of knew there was God and there was Jesus and like just very, very basic things, but I didn't know any of the Bible stories at all. Like, I literally didn't even know what Adam and Eve was until I searched up the story on YouTube. And so yeah. And so I eventually, my sophomore year of high school, I think that year, I got really into trying to find out more about what Christianity was and started trying to read the Bible and researching different questions about it. And I started eventually looking into different Christian denominations because I was like, well, like there's all these different churches, like which one do I join? The very first one that I think I started going, the very first one I started going to was this small Baptist church, which was actually the same place where I went for my preschool. So it was like kind of like I kind of knew it, but I hadn't really been to any of their church services really until then. And so I started going there. There was another time I visited another church nearby me, which was United Church of Christ. And I visited like the Methodist church and but I started doing a bunch of research on the different Christian denominations. And I figured like one of these churches has to be the true church. Like, and I know there's a lot of Protestants who will say that it doesn't really matter what church you go to, as long as you believe in Jesus. And I feel like that didn't really sit well with me because like, there's only one truth. And so, if all these churches have differing beliefs, then like they can't all be true at the same time. Like there have to be like, set things that Jesus wanted us to believe. And so I was kind of trying to explore that. There was one time where I was getting really into the Seventh-day Adventist, like their theology, like really interested in them. And then I think for a little while, I was getting really interested in Mormonism. But then eventually in the summer of 2013, so about a year after I started, doing research on this sort of thing, I went on a school trip to Italy and Greece. And our very first stop was in Rome. And so when we were in Rome, I noticed that had like this huge Catholic culture. There were churches everywhere, and they were all like Catholic and they were beautiful. But I think that the thing that stood out to me the most was when we went to the Vatican, and we went into the museum, and at the Vatican Museum, I was just amazed. Like, it was beautiful, like looking at all the art, and I really felt like I felt God's presence while I was there. Like, I just was like, I could literally like sit here like all day and just like pray and read the Bible or something. Just like, I was just amazed. And definitely like my favorite painting there is the Disputation of the Holy Sacrament by Raphael. Yeah, that's definitely like my favorite painting that is there. And it really, in particular, made me feel God's presence. And so, yeah. And so after that trip, I started really like hardcore researching into Catholicism, because that was kind of like, I hadn't really done that before. And also, while I was in Rome, this was also really cool. I ended up getting a rosary blessed by the Pope. So after we went to the museum, I went into the gift shop, and then I found this really beautiful rosary, and it was like rose scented. Like, it smells really nice, and I wanted to get it. And I didn't even really know what a rosary was at that time. I thought it was just a necklace, but but yeah. And then the lady at the cash register, she said like, oh, like we could get this blessed by the Pope and we could mail it to you. And so I decided like, wow, I want to get it blessed by the Pope. And that at the time was very like, it was a huge deal because it was 2013. So this was only a few months after Pope Francis had been elected as Pope. And so I was like, that's so exciting. Like, the new Pope is going to bless my rosary. And yeah. And I just think like in Rome, like I really appreciate how they have this really like, they're so like centered like with Catholicism. Like, you could just see Catholic stuff everywhere. Like, going to the gift shops, you just see Catholic imagery everywhere. Everyone's selling rosaries. Like, you see like icons like in the streets and stuff like that. And so yeah. And so, yeah, when I came back, I started really hardcore, like researching into Catholicism. I started reading a bunch of articles and watching like a ton of like videos on Catholicism and stuff. And eventually, I remembered later that year, later that year on my birthday, which was in November. And so that was the year I turned 16. And that happened to fall on a Sunday that year. And that was my first time going to a Catholic mass. And it was like, since it was my first time, like I was definitely overwhelmed, and I was there just all by myself. And I was like, and it's very different from, like your average Protestant church in America, because there's so many more rituals and prayers and things like that. Like, I didn't know any of the prayers off the top of my head or like anything like that. I didn't know what to expect. So it was all a little bit like overwhelming for me. It was very overwhelming my first time there, especially because at that time, it was the biggest church I had ever been to, because all the Protestant churches I had been to before were like really small. And so, yeah, so there's like a lot of people on a Sunday, and it was just like, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't have anyone there to help me. And so, yeah. And then I went again for Christmas Eve, and then like kind of the same thing happened again. And so I remembered kind of like, maybe I should just take a little bit of a break from looking into Catholicism for a while. Like, because I was also like, as much as I was looking into the Catholic side, I was researching the Protestant side as well, and researching Protestant arguments, because I was just trying to find like whatever church was true. And even though I felt very drawn towards Catholicism, I was like starting to feel like maybe I shouldn't be Catholic, being convinced by some of the Protestant arguments. And so after that, I eventually started getting really into Lutheranism. So this was around January 2014. And so this was also the same time my grandfather died. And so what kind of pushed me into that was my grandfather, before he died, he was at a rehab center, and it was run by like a Lutheran church. It was run by Lutherans. And so when we had his funeral, they had a chapel there, and we had the funeral there. And so that kind of pushed me into thinking maybe I should start researching the Lutheran church. And I found that a lot of their theology is so similar to Catholic theology, like even though like they are Protestant, because they were like pretty much like the first Protestants, like, like Martin Luther. Well, like Anglican and Lutherans, but yeah. I was not into the Anglican church at all, though, because I think just like, knowing how it started with King Henry VIII wanting to divorce his wife, I'm like, that does not sound at all like, what Jesus would have wanted in a church. So yeah, I kind of shut that down pretty much immediately. And so, yeah, but then Luther, I was like, at least he had good intentions. So yeah. And so I started looking into that, attending a Lutheran church, and yeah. And then eventually, that summer of 2014, I started to kind of go into another little theological crisis on whether or not evolution was true or not. Yeah. And so, I was just doing a lot of research and onto things like that. And eventually I was just like, okay, like evolution is true. And, but God used evolution to create us. And so when I was kind of in that like spiral of looking into things, I eventually found this audiobook on YouTube, Evolutionary Science and the Catholic Church. That's the name of the audiobook on YouTube, and it's by Father Kevin Vogel. And so I listened through that, and I was like, oh wow, okay. And the Catholic Church accepts evolution, and so I was very interested by that, because I didn't really know that before. And so I think that was one of the things that kind of started to make me think about Catholicism more again. And so yeah, I continued to do more research that summer, and I remembered going back to Mass again for the third time, like that August. Yeah, I was looking into Catholicism, but then I was still kind of like not 100% sure about some of the theological beliefs. And I remembered even posting on Yahoo Answers, like, should I stay Protestant or become Catholic, or like which church should I join? And yeah, just getting a bunch of answers on there. And so yeah, I was just really like hardcore like researching theology like during that time, and just feeling really drawn towards Catholicism. And I remembered one of the theological beliefs I was kind of wrestling with was should we pray to Mary? Like, and so I knew that in Catholic beliefs, like they don't, like they believe they're not worshiping Mary, but then Protestants will argue, well, even though you don't think you're worshiping Mary, you're still praying to her, which is kind of like worshiping her. So I was like, kind of like, not sure on that. And so I had prayed the rosary before when I first got it, and was first hardcore researching Catholicism in the summer of 2013, but then eventually later on kind of stopped, just took a break from it. But then I remembered eventually just this one time, like, just feeling really drawn towards it. And like, just like, it's so pretty. I want to like hold it and stuff like that. And then eventually I just got around to just like praying it again.
Wow.
And yeah, especially just as I was researching more into Catholicism, like I started to feel more and more convinced by different Catholic beliefs. And yeah, and so this was my senior year of high school, so 2014, 2015. And so yeah, and I started going to mass a little bit more often. That year for me was very difficult. It was a very stressful year for me, especially with school and applying to colleges. And it was, yeah, honestly, probably, yeah, I kind of hated that school year. I know everyone loves their senior year of high school for some reason, but I just kind of hated mine. And so, yeah, but I was just like so stressed out, and I was, yeah, just struggling in my classes because I was doing IB, and IB classes are just really hard. Yeah. And, but, okay. And one of the other things that I did when I was during that school year was I wrote an extended essay. So for IB, which is the International Baccalaureate Program, in case anyone doesn't know, yeah, it's very intense. It's kind of like AP, but like kind of more, I guess, interconnected in a way, but it's like, and then there's extra stuff that you do. And so it's like kind of harder in a way too. But one of the things you have to do in IB is write an extended essay. It's like this 10-page essay on basically like whatever you want. Like it's a research paper on just like whatever you want. Okay, at least I can do theological research for school now. Like, because I went to public school. So yeah. So we weren't taking like religion classes or anything like that. And so, yeah, but I was able to do a lot of research on Catholicism kind of through doing that paper. And what else? Yeah, but yeah, that year was very, very stressful for me. And I was really struggling a lot in my math class, particularly. No matter how much I tried to like figure things out, it was like I could not like do math. And yeah, and I was struggling so hard in that class. And eventually I started like be convinced about the idea of asking for Mary and the saints intercession. And so for the first time I prayed to Saint Jude. Yeah. And so he was the very first saint who I prayed to, because I looked him up, and he was the patron saint of impossible causes. And I was struggling really bad in my math class, and like, just like, so I prayed that he would help me in that class and pass it. And eventually I did. And so that was really, yeah, really like a huge thing for me. And so, yeah, and that's also why I ended up picking Saint Jude as my confirmation saint and my name, basically. So, yeah. And so, yeah, that summer I continued to really research Catholicism a lot more. And I started college. And while I was in college, I finally decided I'm going to join RCIA. So I started RCIA in the fall of 2015 and eventually got confirmed in 2016 on April 3rd. So, yeah.
Wow. Do you believe in the power of conversion stories? Has this show moved you in some way? Join the Branches of the Vine community of supporters. You will be making this show happen, and you'll be helping it grow and expand into new avenues to reach even more souls. Visit togrowgood.com/support to join for as little as $3 a month. This link is also a live link in today's episode description. If you just scroll down, you'll be able to click right there to join us. As a gift back to you, you will gain access to an underground bonus podcast. That's right, a collection of monthly episodes on a series of different topics that stir my heart, in addition to behind-the-scenes updates on where he's leading this ministry and more. You are the light of the world. Thank you so much for supporting me in this mission and stepping out on the water to wherever he calls me next. Let's see where this goes. Oh my gosh, what an adventure. I feel like you really, wow, you like went to so many different ideologies and researched so many different like faith traditions and like the history of them and what they believe and why. And I just feel like you really thoroughly were searching. But there's so many things I love about your story. I think one of my favorites is the evolution part. Like, I just love how we think these are just like random thoughts, right? And then I feel like the Lord will use it to show you like, and that's why I love to hear people's stories and reflect on that, but also to encourage people to like seek the answers to the questions that you have, because everyone has their own individual like curiosities or thoughts, that are just kind of there. And I think that's the Lord like inviting you to go deeper, because there's truth he wants to show you there if you follow it all the way through, and obviously are seeking the good, right? Like obviously you have to discern at the same time. You don't just like do whatever. But I do think he uses our own curiosities and kind of our own questions to help us to go deeper. And that's even true once you're in the church. I feel like there's like new devotions or like a new saint that will all of a sudden pop up. And it's like, oh, like, Lord, like, what do you want to teach me through this? Because now that I've like identified that, I can be like, okay, this is like a door he's trying to open for me to like walk through to get closer to him or to try to teach me something that maybe I need to learn. And I just feel like I can see that so much through your story, because you were genuinely seeking him and he was using every turn that you went to kind of deepen this understanding of Catholicism in a way, which is just wild. Like when you think about it, it's like he almost was using, he was obviously letting you lead while he was leading, which is like that paradox, but he was letting you explore to show you a new truth that would lead you to the next step, which is just so beautiful to reflect on. But yeah. Oh my gosh. I think the only big question I had was like from the very beginning, I guess, like, what was it that made you go the Christianity route and not, into a different religion or ideology altogether? What was it that kind of at that time, do you remember what drew you to Christianity versus anything else?
I mean, I did also research other religions like a little bit, but I think that just the argument for Christianity kind of made the most sense to me. And so I think I just kind of, just chose to go down that route just of Christianity. And yeah. Like, the arguments for like, Jesus and things like that. I just thought those just made the most sense.
Right. Like the fact that like he claimed to be God, I feel like, and it's the only religion really that had a man that actually claimed to be God starting his own religion, is pretty compelling, because it's either which I also love because I feel like he knows it's like, oh, that's easy to just either prove or disprove. Like I'm just gonna I'm just gonna figure this out real quick and then I'll be out, and then it turns into this whole journey of of questions. And then I just love how you went not only, theological arguments, but also it was like drawing your heart through the rosary and just like how these little glimpses, like your trip to Italy and how they were years apart, but they stood out in your heart. And like the fact that you picked up a rosary at the Vatican, I mean, Our Lady must have been praying for you like all the way back to that moment. And it's just so beautiful to like reflect on that. I love that so much. And so what led you to start your YouTube channel?
It was just something that, I think for the last few years was something that I always was very interested in doing. I love video editing. Like, I think it was something that I've always really loved like, for example, when I was in middle school, I really wanted to create my own like TV show. And so I ended up writing like a bunch of scripts for this TV show that I made up and tried to get my little cousins to act in it and stuff like that. And they were so little at the time because I'm the oldest of my cousins and they were all like, like 8 and under. And I was like 12. And so it was kind of hard. It's kind of hard when you have like 4 to 8 year olds to try to get them to cooperate. And so, it kind of like fell flat a little bit, but but I had fun trying to record that and like edit that. Like I had so much fun with editing using Windows Movie Maker and stuff. And then just this, just last year I got a new computer. And so, I finally decided to get Final Cut. And I was like, I should start a YouTube channel. Like, I really want to do that. Yeah. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. That's amazing. If someone wants to find you, where can they go?
So my YouTube channel name, it's just my name, Caitlyn Jude. My Twitter and Instagram, it's Caitlyn Jude _.
What would you say is one of your biggest challenges that you've encountered in cultivating this relationship with God, and what has been one of your greatest joys?
Okay, yeah. So biggest challenges I think have been I think the fact that, I am Catholic and the rest of my family isn't. And so kind of being the only Catholic in my immediate family, like in my household. And so, just feeling like it can kind of make you feel a little bit lonely in a sense. And that was something I felt a lot, especially when I was in high school, because I didn't really have people who I could talk to. I felt like I was kind of on that whole journey alone, just trying to figure it all out by myself. Because I felt like none of my friends really were like super into, religion and stuff. And so I felt like I was kind of a little bit of an outsider, just like trying to like, think of all these like deep theological questions, whereas they were, I don't know, thinking like talking about something else. I also struggle with, as far as like with prayer, I always get so distracted. So that's something I continually try to work on. So so I'd say those are just some of the struggles that I have. And then as far as greatest joys, I think being able to find people who share my beliefs, especially when I got to college, I made a lot of friends who were Catholic. And I think that has really helped me a lot in that feeling that I had, especially in high school, with like feeling very alone and like I didn't have anyone to talk about these things with, or people who would understand like, what I was thinking or why I felt a certain way. And so being able to find like a sense of community and friendship, like, after starting college. I think that has been definitely one of my greatest joys. And then also just feeling like I know like this, I have this like sense of truth, and then like this reason for, my life, just knowing like, oh, like I was created with a purpose, and, kind of knowing what God wants from us. I think that having like that faith in God, it just kind of helps to center me in a way that I would say I didn't have so much when before I was researching into Christianity, like when I was more in middle school and early high school. I just didn't have that.
Totally. Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. That's beautiful. So what have been some of your standout influences on your journey? It sounds like you've read a lot. If there are any books or a specific speaker or writer that you wanted to mention, especially for someone who maybe is on the journey now, or maybe they're seeking and they want to go deeper, or maybe they have a lot in common with your story and they're interested in learning about what helped you.
Yeah, so one of the books I read was, The Catholic Church, What Everyone Needs to Know by John L. Allen Jr. And that book helped me a lot, especially when I was doing that paper. Yeah, I used that as a resource. And then what else? I really love Catholic Answers and New Advent as websites that are really good at helping to explain the Catholic faith and what we believe. A book that really helped me with understanding Mary was Hail Holy Queen by Scott Hahn. I really love his stuff. I also read Rome Sweet Home as well. By him. And I read that after my conversion though, but it's still such a good book. And then, and so those were just some of the things that I read that helped me to understand the faith more. Another book I also really recommend is also Surprised by Truth by Patrick Madrid. I read the second one, Surprised by Truth 2, and it goes into conversion stories from people from tons of different backgrounds, from how they were, whatever faith they were before and how they came into the Catholic Church. And I remembered my my friend who ended up being my confirmation sponsor. Yeah, she loaned me that book. And so I read that during that time when I was in RCIA. And
awesome. So the last question I hope to ask everyone who comes on at the end is, can you share with us one scripture verse that is either speaking to you recently or that played a foundational role in your journey, and why?
I'd say my favorite verse is Philippians 4, verse 6. And so, be anxious about nothing, but in all things with prayer and supplication and acts of thanksgiving, let your petitions be made known to God. And so, I think that verse, has always kind of been my favorite verse that stood out to me, to just kind of not to worry in, I guess, times of difficulty or in confusion, but just to pray about, these things and knowing that God can handle your feeling or your strength. And so, that's just kind of always been my favorite verse, So.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, just to open up to him and be like, Lord, you show me the way, and that's all that he asks of us, is to open ourselves to him, and he will show us the way. And I feel like you can see that so clearly in your story. So thank you so much, Caitlyn. This has been awesome. Your story is amazing. As always, they always are. And I am just so grateful for you sharing it with us, and also for your ministry on YouTube. I can't wait to see where that goes. yeah, where the Lord's going to take that next.
Yep. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you for having me on. Yeah. It's been, this is, so amazing. And so, thank you.
Of course. All right. Bye. Thank you so much for growing some good with us today. Visit us at togrowgood.com/podcast to find links to everything we mentioned in today's conversation. If you enjoyed today's conversation, would you please consider leaving us a review on iTunes or on whatever app you're listening from? Reviews help podcasts to show up higher in search results so that more people can find these incredible stories of the Lord at work. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider sharing it with a friend, a family member, or a coworker who might enjoy the conversation as well. Find us on Instagram at togrowgood. See you next week.